All right. We are live. Cigar and a Beverage back on the air after some technical difficulties that we had earlier last week. I'm proud to be back on the air. Tonight's beverage of choice is a Dos Equis Lager Especial as I open it up. And I do have a Cohiba tonight, so let's talk. There's my Cohiba right here. As always, you can follow me on TikTok right there at Cigar Bevnola. That's at Cigar Bevnola on TikTok. And you can always Venmo me at Paul-Wonder-1. All proceeds from your donations will go straight back into this program that I can continue to run each and every week. And with your donations, I can get improvements done to my studio, which is basically a garage. I'm going to be honest. It's basically a garage. So your donations help. I could revamp this. I'd like your support to help me revamp it. Breaking news. Aaron Judge finally hits home run number 62. It happened while we were getting ready to come on the air. Congratulations to Aaron Judge finally breaking that elusive history-making 60-second home run. It's an American League record as well as a New York Yankees record for most home runs in a single season. On the American League side, as well as a Yankees franchise record. So Aaron Judge finally does it, and now ESPN can stop interrupting college football so we can not have to worry about watching this happen anymore. It happened in the top half of the first inning of who's even pitching tonight for the Texas Rangers? Jesus Tinoco. He hits it off of Jesus Tinoco for home run number 62. So congratulations to Aaron Judge for finally hitting home run number 62. Let's see. So, as always, you can click on the link provided right here on my Facebook page to join in on the conversation if you wish. Would really love it if you did. We're just talking sports. That's all we're doing. Talking sports. Let's go through what happened this past weekend in the National Football League. We start on Thursday night. Where the Miami Dolphins losing Tua Tagovailoa to yet another concussion. And here's what I got to say on this, and this is a good starting point for us tonight. Tua was concussed in Miami's game previously. Let's see, who did they play the week before? Against Buffalo, a game in which they won 21-19. He goes into concussion protocol, and he probably should have never been playing on Thursday. I mean, that just is what it is. He probably should have never been playing on Thursday. So, this is as much on the head coach, Mike McDaniel, as it is on the team doctors And it should have never been allowed to happen because he goes in to play against Cincinnati on Thursday, and in the first half, he goes down with a concussion. They had to stretcher him off the field in Cincinnati. All right, they had to stretcher him off the field in Cincinnati, and it was an embarrassing sight for not only the league, but for the Miami Dolphins organization. So now it's coming out today that Tua is set to speak to representatives from the National Football League, the Players Association, and apparently he was supposed to speak with them today. And it's part of a joint investigation into the concussion evaluation from the Buffalo game on September the 25th. He briefly exited the game against the Bills in the first half with what the team initially announced as a head injury. Tagovailoa stumbled as he began to trot forward before getting taken out of the game, and later returned in the second half, which should have never happened. Should have never happened. So Mike McDaniel told reporters that Tagovailoa suffered a lower back injury in the first half, which was exacerbated by the hit from Matt Milano. And that was the cause of Tagovailoa's stumble. So the Players Association initiated an investigation into the handling of the concussion evaluation. Now he gets concussed on Thursday, and on Saturday the Players Association terminated the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant involved in Tagovailoa's concussion check during the Week 3 game against Buffalo. And what the NFLPA cited a failure to understand his role as the UNC, the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant, and hostility during the investigation process among the factors contributing to his dismissal. I'm not going to go on in this story any more than it has already been. This story has been beaten with a stick. But this is the deal with this. Concussions are not something you need to take lightly in the game of football. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. You can't take it lightly. So why didn't the team physician check him out? Not this unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant. The team physician should have made the determination as to what was going on. If you're calling it a lower back injury, but he clearly has symptoms of a concussion, then why the heck is he going back out there? That part I don't understand. And now he's clearly playing with some sort of head trauma against Cincinnati. He takes a hit, whiplash effect almost, gets another concussion, and now he's going to be out this week against the Jets, and rightly so. Not only should he be out against the Jets, he should be out until at least the end of October. In which case, the Dolphins will play, during that span, the Dolphins will play the Jets, the Vikings, and the Steelers. Come back against Detroit. If you sit out for 3 weeks, I think you should be okay to play. But he shouldn't play until then. That's just my opinion on that one. Because he's clearly hurt, and he's taken what seems to be, and what the public seems to think, were 2 concussions in a span of 4 days. 2 concussions in the span of 4 days. Somebody did not do their job within the NFL, the Miami Dolphins organization, and now for the Players Association to get involved and terminate the contract of an unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant, a UNC is what they want to call it. There is a disconnect somewhere, and more people need to have their jobs reevaluated because of this. This is a terrible, gross mishandling of this situation, and it's not Tua's fault. And I would also hold the head coach responsible. Mike McDaniel seems to be a charismatic guy, a player's coach, somebody that says he's looking out for the players. But if he's going to trot Tua Tagovailoa, your prized franchise possession, out onto the field and have him play with what the public feels is clear symptoms of a concussion, you're going to put him out there to play, that's on you, dude. I have no sympathy for the head coach. I have sympathy for Tua Tagovailoa in this situation because he doesn't deserve that treatment. And if he had anything to say about playing or not playing, then now it becomes Tua's fault. Dolphins lost 27-15 over Cincinnati. In London on Sunday morning, the Saints and the Vikings played in what the media is calling a classic. But I watched the game, and anybody else that watched the game, whether they were part of the 70-plus thousand in London or the couple million that watched the game stateside, whether they saw it live or by replay, this game was downright ugly. Downright ugly. And it's because of the New Orleans Saints that this game was ugly, and it was also because, in my opinion, the officiating. The officiating was atrocious. Absolutely, utterly atrocious. And the Saints fell victim to it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that the Saints played a clean game because they absolutely didn't. Turned the ball over twice. Saw some encouraging things, especially from Andy Dalton, who played in place of Jameis Winston. That's another story. And I thought the Saints were victims to very bad officiating. Very bad. And the NFL, I think, needs to go back and look into their officiating office because that was bad. Look, the Saints got called for 10 penalties for 102 yards. They didn't do themselves any favors because of the two or three turnovers. Let's see, how many turnovers? 2 fumbles, the 2 turnovers. They can't move the football. And when they could move the football, it was late in the game or late in each half. The fourth quarter is what it was. Saints have problems. Their offensive line can't block. They were fine. The defense finally was able to find, especially in the front seven, they were finally able to find pressure to get to the quarterback. They got to Kirk Cousins 3 times. But the officiating was bad. And one example of that was on the drive in which the Vikings scored a touchdown to take a 25-22 lead. And they were helped out with an illegal hands to the face where Tyrann Mathieu gets called for the penalty, and he blocked the shoulder pads, didn't even come close to the receiver's face. All right. Then the Saints later in the same drive got called for a pass interference where it shouldn't have been called because the defenders were playing the ball. Okay, the Saints at the beginning of the game got called for an illegal man downfield. They penalized Cesar Ruiz for that one. Cesar Ruiz, yes, was down the field, but at the same time, the ball was thrown to Mark Ingram, who was behind the line of scrimmage. It was a screen play, And yet they're going to call illegal man downfield when the Vikings later in the game run the same damn play and they don't get called for it. So, look, officiating across the league is inconsistent, horrible, and I think these officials need to be retrained. They need to go back. They need to be reevaluated, and they need to be held more accountable. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that the Saints played well enough to win that football game, but they definitely had their chances. Give credit to Will Lutz. 1:56 to go in the ball game. Hits a 60-yard field goal. They find a way to get the ball back with 24 seconds left. Find a way to get down the field and get into position to at least try a 61-yarder. Lutz had the distance, but it doinked off the upright, then doinked off the crossbar, and it bounced out. Saints lose by a field goal. It is what it is. Saints have to have a come to Jesus. They're 1-3. They're not playing well. They're -7 in the turnover margin for the season. They're one of the most penalized teams in the league, and you can't expect this. And they found a way to beat Atlanta. Lord knows how they were able to find a way to do that. They're 1-3, and they need to have a come to Jesus, or else this ain't working. It's not working. Saints need help. And it starts within the building with their players. The players need to hold themselves accountable. The coaching could only do so much. I don't believe it's Dennis Allen's fault. And then from what I'm seeing, Pete Carmichael, and I apologize for calling out these people, but Pete Carmichael, in my opinion, needs to reevaluate how he calls a football game because this offense is very, very vanilla. Now, with that being said, Andy Dalton was efficient. 20 of 28 for 236 yards and a touchdown, but he did fumble. So it's mistake after mistake after mistake, and it needs to be corrected. And unfortunately, it's not going to get corrected overnight. But they know what the problems are, and it needs to get fixed. Because they have definitely, in my book, a winnable game against Seattle coming up on Sunday. And they need to find a way to play well enough to win that football game and not get called for penalties, whether they're warranted or not. Chargers over Houston on Sunday, 34-24. Bears go down to the Giants, 20-12. Look out, the New York Giants are 3-1. When was the last time they were 3-1? Speaking of Seattle, they were in a shootout, to say the least, against the Detroit Lions, 48-45. DK Metcalf has become a prima donna. Needs to use the bathroom, and he asked for a cart to get him to the bathroom. Unbelievable. 48-45, though. He is as talented as they come at the wide receiver position in the National Football League. Seattle beating Detroit 48-45. Philadelphia remains the only unbeaten team left in the National Football League this year, 29-21 over Jacksonville. Zach Wilson makes his season debut against the Steelers, and the Jets, Jets, 2-2. They beat the Steelers 24-20. Growing pains in Pittsburgh, but they're going to go with Kenny Pickett for the foreseeable future. Falcons get a win over the Cleveland Browns 23-20. Tennessee over Indianapolis 24-17. The Cowboys over the Commanders 25-10. Washington can change their nickname, but they're still going to play like poo. Commanders now 1-3 on the year after going down to the Cowboys. Cooper Rush has become a story so far in this season. He went 15 for 27, 223, 2 touchdowns, passer rating of 107.5 in Dallas's win over Washington. Buffalo used the last-second field goal to down the Ravens on the road 23-20. The Cardinals over the Panthers 26-16. Denver goes down to Las Vegas. I'm going to have to edit that out. Um, Las Vegas defeating the Denver Broncos 32-23. Green Bay needed overtime to beat the Patriots 27-24. Aaron Rodgers throws his 500th career passing touchdown. Fifth player in NFL history to accomplish that feat. And Sunday night, Kansas City over Tampa Bay 41-31. The score may be deceiving because Kansas City beat the hell out of Tampa Bay in that one. All right, and then last night it was San Francisco all over the Rams 24-9. As San Francisco continues to dominate the Rams in the regular season but can't seem to do it in the playoffs. I'm looking at you, Kyle Shanahan. Let's go back and review what happened in college football on Saturday, and we start in the Southeastern Conference. Oh, by the way, we're going to actually start from going back to Thursday. South Carolina beat South Carolina State 50-10. That game was moved from Saturday to Thursday because of Hurricane Ian. Hurricane Ian also changed the start time for Florida and Eastern Washington. Didn't matter. The Gators beat Eastern Washington 52-17. And then the slate on Sunday. In the game of the week in the Southeastern Conference, the Ole Miss Rebels defeated Kentucky 22-19. It was a defensive battle in the second half for Ole Miss as they were able to. They got up 19-3, and Kentucky came back. I'm sorry, 19-12 at the half. 19-6 at one point in the football game. Kentucky came back, tied it at 19. Ole Miss scores a field goal at the end of the third quarter to take the 3-point lead, and that's all the scoring there was because Ole Miss turned on the defense and created fits for Will Levis. The number 7 ranked Kentucky Wildcats go down in Oxford. Alabama gets up 28-0 on Arkansas. The Razorbacks come all the way back, and then Alabama said enough. Went on a tear, wins 49-26. Mississippi State continues to absolutely own the series against Texas A&M since the Aggies joined the SEC. 42-24, Bulldogs over the Aggies, and Mike Leach also continues to make Texas A&M his bitch. Texas A&M, $30 million recruiting class. I don't care how much they spent on it. They were the highly touted number 1 ranked recruiting class in all America, yada, yada, yada. Jimbo Fisher is calling other fellow head coaches in the Southeastern Conference clowns. He's taking shots at Nick Saban, yada, yada, yada. A&M loses to Appalachian State earlier in the year and then get absolutely lambasted against Mississippi State in Starkville. Bullies win by 18. LSU gets down 17-0 to the Auburn Tigers, and then LSU finds a way come back and win 21-17. Chalk that up to being another one of those crazy-ass football games on the plains between Auburn and LSU. And then the surprise of the weekend in the conference, Missouri was leading for most of the football game against the number 1 ranked team in the country. They had Georgia on the ropes and couldn't hang on. They were Missouri was up 22 to 12. And found a way, and the Bulldogs find a way to come back and win 26-22. And yes, Missouri covers the 28-point spread. Missouri covers the 28-point spread, but you don't get a victory for covering the spread. Georgia wins 26-20. 22. Going back to this LSU game against Auburn, you want to talk about another bad officiating call? As I'm trying to pull up the story here. It was an LSU player on special teams. Lowers his head. Gets called for the penalty. That's Seven Banks. Injured on the opening kickoff against Auburn. Taken to the local hospital for tests. Luckily, he has all movement in his extremities. He was stretchered off and was alert and mobile, which was a good thing. Thank the Lord on that one. But here's the thing. Seven Banks is a graduate transfer from Ohio State, by the way. He got called for targeting. Now, you want to talk about insult to injury. He gets called for targeting. How in the hell do you have the guts and the heart to call somebody for targeting when at the time could be laying down on the field, on the plains at Jordan-Hare Stadium, and for all we know could have been paralyzed, and he's going to get called for targeting? Again, you want to talk about bad officials? The football officials in the Southeastern Conference have to be the worst in all of college football. The worst in all of college football. I'm sorry. Bad. Bad. Officials are inconsistent across the board. Period. Now, good thing he's all right. Doesn't look like he's going to play against Tennessee. But, you know, it is what it is. You hope he could. You hope that he'll be able to play later on in the season. But that remains to be seen. The other thing, too, is Jaden Daniels got hurt during this football game, but according to Coach Brian Kelly, he is on track to play on Saturday against Tennessee on Saturday morning. I have the intention of bringing this show back on the road to Baton Rouge for this game, but because of the early start and we don't know what's going to happen there, I could bring it. And we'll see what happens. Give us some time to tailgate a little bit and talk to some folks and see what we could do. But I don't. It is now the game is sold out, but it might be a late arriving crowd due to the early kickoff time. LSU fans not happy about that one, and I wouldn't be either, because this is a game between two top 25 football teams now. And it's going to be an interesting one. Tennessee is a 3-point road favorite in Death Valley. Tennessee coming into this football game relatively fresh. Here's the SEC slate for you for this week. Arkansas will travel on the road to take on Mississippi State, where the Bulldogs are an 8-point favorite at home. Florida, an 11-point favorite at home against Missouri. And, of course, LSU, Tennessee. All three of those games are 11 o'clock kickoffs. The CBS game, the number 2 ranked Georgia Bulldogs will host Auburn. Number 9, Ole Miss travels to Nashville to take on Vanderbilt. The Rebels are an 18-point favorite against Vandy. Georgia, by the way, is a 30-point favorite at home against Auburn. 6:30 kickoff in Lexington. Kentucky takes on South Carolina, where the Wildcats are a 10.5-point favorite. And the nightcap, this one ought to be interesting. Texas A&M travels to Tuscaloosa to take on Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. Alabama, there is a possibility where Alabama may or may not be with Bryce Young. But I don't think that's going to matter with the way Alabama's playing. They lambast Arkansas, and I don't believe Nick Saban's going to be very happy going into this one, just because that's how he is. You lose to A&M last year, and then you compound with the fact that one of your former assistant coaches bashes you after the recruiting period, after the signing period, because of the quote-unquote $30 million recruiting class that you had because of NIL. So that one ought to be fun. Like an old married couple fighting it out. That's what we're going to see at Tuscaloosa. But I think Alabama might cover that 24-point spread against Texas A&M. And I don't think it's going to be pretty. And if Nick Saban has the opportunity to put 60 on Jimbo Fisher, he ought to take it. These are two teams in the SEC West that a lot of fans don't like at the moment. But if they had to root for one, the fans of the SEC that are not affiliated with either one of these schools, if they had to root for one, I mean, I know who I would root for in this situation. I'd root for Alabama in this situation, but that's just me. I can't believe I just said that. I think I threw up in my mouth a little bit. You know, I think this game might be more entertaining if they put a WWE wrestling ring at midfield and let Jimbo and Nick fight. I think that would be the best thing for this football game. It might be a closer fight because Alabama's just going to walk all over Texas A&M. I think that's what the odds makers are saying. That's what objective fans are saying. Texas A&M is not good. They're just not. Sorry, they're not. And if they think they have a fighting chance, they had a better... Look, they were better last year than they are this year. They had quarterback issues at the beginning of the year. They go to Max Johnson. Max Johnson seemingly gets hurt against Mississippi State. Now they got to revert back to another quarterback. The quarterback situation is in bad shape against for the Aggies, and Jimbo Fisher can't coach offensive football for the life of him. This was supposed to be a high-power offense with a strong defense. Well, the defense stinks, and the offense is sputtering. I think if A&M has a fighting chance in this one, they need to put the wrestling ring at midfield and let Jimbo and Nick fight. And even then, Texas A&M might get their asses whipped because I wouldn't want to fight against Nick Saban. It's just me. My money would be on Nick. I mean, you know what I mean? Talking about fights, let's review what happened in Columbus, Ohio, where Ohio State, okay, whether it's an asshole-ish move or not, Ohio State decides they're going to call an onside kick. I'm sorry, not an onside kick, a fake punt against Rutgers, up 49-10 on the Scarlet Knights. The punter is running for the first down, gets the first down, and gets leveled on the sideline with a late hit by a Rutgers defender. Now, the letter of the law, the flag had to be thrown. But I don't blame the Rutgers defender for doing what he did, because you're down by 39 points late in the football game, and Ryan Day and that coaching staff is going to call a fake punt when they're up by damn near 40. I think if you were the punt returner, you're going to do the same thing. Right? So what does that cause? It causes Greg Schiano, the head coach of Rutgers, in his second stint at Rutgers, by the way, to run across the field, confront Ryan Day, and they almost came to blows. You kidding me? Maybe after the season, we ought to put a wrestling ring in the Horseshoe in Columbus, Ohio, and let those two fight. My money would be on Greg Schiano to kick Ryan Day's ass. I mean, really? Calling a fake punt up 39 points. Ryan Day, that was unsportsmanlike, and then I'm going to use a nice term. I could use another one, but that was just bad. Bad decision. Rounding out the top 25 scores in college football on Saturday, BYU on last Thursday defeating Utah State 38-26. UCLA upsetting Washington 40-32. Washington was ranked number 15 in the country going into that football game, and now UCLA is 5-0. Look out, Chip Kelly building a program at UCLA. This is what happens when you give a coach a chance. Because Chip Kelly could have very well been on his way out of Westwood. He's given another opportunity this season, and now he's got UCLA playing like they are a contender in the Pac-12. Don't know how long that's going to last, but for the moment, UCLA raising eyebrows out west. Okay. Michigan over Iowa 27-14. Rather pedestrian, but Iowa actually scored touchdowns. Haven't been able to do that this year. The Hawkeyes are 3-2, and for the life of them, can't score a lick. And the offense can't go anywhere. 281 yards of total offense against the Wolverines. Then again, Michigan's defense is pretty good, but Iowa, come on. You got to get that offense going. Oklahoma, 2 straight losses. 2 straight bad losses. First to Kansas State last week. This week they lose 55-24 to the Horned Frogs at TCU. Look out, Sonny Dykes. Sonny Dykes has got TCU 4-0 and tied for the top of the conference. But with who, you say? Kansas State, as they beat Texas Tech 37-28. Kansas State, undefeated in conference play. They have the bad loss against Tulane. Yes, it's a bad loss for them. But the Kansas State Wildcats are going to look to move up the polls as they defeat Texas Tech at home. Went over the Kentucky Ole Miss game. Utah over Oregon State 42-16. Wake Forest over Florida State in the top 25 matchup in Tallahassee, 31-21. The Demon Deacons. Look out, Wake Forest. A good bounce-back win for them after getting beat by Clemson in overtime last week. Penn State in a very low-scoring football game against Northwestern, 17-7, the Nittany Lions, a winner there. Oklahoma State avenging the loss to the Baylor Bears in last year's Big 12 championship game. They go to Waco and defeat Baylor 36-25. Kansas beating Iowa State 14-11. Kansas is ranked this week, and game day is going to go to Lawrence. The Jayhawks play TCU this weekend. Syracuse over Wagner 59-0. Tulsa going down to Cincinnati 31-21. North Carolina State loses to Clemson 30-20. USC over Arizona State 42-25. And Oregon, yes, these are Pac-12 at night. Pac-12 after dark. Oregon over the trees of Stanford 45-27. That rounds out the top 25. So the top 25 this week, yes. Kansas moves up to number 19 in the country, hosting number 17 TCU. Let's see. Cincinnati moves up to number 24 in the country. They get to play South Florida. And let's see something here. Syracuse is off this week, but they're number 22. They play North Carolina State on October the 15th up in upstate New York. Look at that one. The Orange ranked in the top 25. Teams are playing well. Teams are playing not so well. And then you have your everyday top 25 teams, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, that will be consistently ranked no matter what. I'm still in favor of the wrestling ring in the middle of Bryant-Denny Stadium at the 50-yard line in Tuscaloosa to see Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher fight. And while we're at it, might as well put up a steel cage and let them fight in the cage. I think that might be more entertaining than what we're going to see on the field on Saturday night in Central Alabama. Just saying. Other news and notes from around the world of sports. Dak Prescott not expected to play against the Rams this week. Like anybody cares. Cooper Rush is the guy. Speaking of QB1, if Andy Dalton is not QB1 going forward for the Saints have no shot. Jameis needs to focus on getting healthy. I mean, that just is what it is. He needs to focus on getting healthy because he's got an ankle problem, he's got a hip problem, and he's got 4 fractures in his back. He tried to play against Carolina, and that didn't work. All right? He had the fractures in his back against Tampa Bay. That was bad. Okay. Let Andy Dalton play for a while. He was efficient against Minnesota and London. He might be even more efficient against Seattle. The problem is he can't get the ball down the field. Long throws, deep passes. He can throw the short to intermediate routes. Can't throw the long ball. But the Saints are a West Coast offense variation anyway. You don't see a whole lot of deep passes. At least you haven't seen a lot of those the last couple of years, even towards the end of Drew Brees' time as quarterback, because Drew Brees couldn't get the ball down the field. So let's see what happens with that. It might be the best thing for the Saints going right now. You need a change of pace. You need to try to win football games. Andy Dalton might be your best shot. Sorry. And I was high on Jameis coming into the season. But so far, it ain't working. Just ain't working. NBA preseason games have opened up, but the story in the NBA right now is the story involving the Phoenix Suns. They are expected to be on the selling block as Robert Sarver is looking to sell the franchise because he's going to be suspended for the year for comments that he made and other incidents that have been deemed racist and misogynistic. Looks like, according to the bankers in the know, the Suns are likely to be sold for an NBA record price. No word on a number. It doesn't look like a number's been reported, but it could fetch billions. To put it to you like this, ownership has changed with Brooklyn, Houston, and the Clippers recently, and all three of those teams have netted over $2 billion apiece. How much are the Suns going to go for? 3, 4, maybe $5 billion? The price tag on professional sports franchises nowadays, especially in the NFL and in the NBA, are ridiculous. But that's just the world we live in, and they talk about inflation being a problem, which it is. Not going to be a problem for these owners, though. You want to talk about NBA? Currently 2 games going on as NBA preseason open up tonight. The Knicks are ahead of the Pistons 110-85 in the fourth. In the third quarter, Timberwolves on the road at Miami, leading 74-62. 8:30 tip-off in Chicago, Pelicans and the Bulls. And the Trailblazers host the Utah Jazz with a 9 p.m. Central Standard Time tip. That's it for me tonight. I thank you for joining me. Everybody that has joined me tonight, I thank you. Looking to get some guests on, possibly here on the next episode. I'm looking to go back on the air on Thursday, so be on the lookout for that. I'll post something up on my Facebook page about that. Can't wait to get back on the air. Want to be a little bit more consistent with all of this. And as always, grab your favorite cigar, grab your favorite beverage, sit back, relax. As always, you could hit the link, join in the conversation. It is open lines all the time. Don't be scared. Click the link, join in the conversation. Always like to hear people talk about sports with me, because I'm just one man's opinion, and one man's opinion is one man's opinion. But I'd like to hear the other opinions of the people out there. I'll be in Baton Rouge, LSU, Tennessee. Probably get a post-game report after that game, depending on the result. Could be jubilation, or it could be sadness, depending on how that game turns out for either team. So we'll be ready for that. Thank you for joining me tonight. And as always, grab your favorite cigar. And I'm going to say this again. Grab your favorite cigar. Grab your favorite beverage. Sit back. Join in on the conversation. Can't wait to talk to you. I thank you for joining me. Always, and look, don't forget, follow me on TikTok at Cigar Bevnola, and you can always Venmo me at Paul-Wonder-1. All proceeds go back into the production of this program. Thank you. Have a good night.